I have a little story to share with you, and I'd assume that you all, like myself, have shortcomings, things that you're just not as good as other people at doing. This little story is about a 9-year-old boy who had a shortcoming. His shortcoming was reading, and particularly reading out loud. And it came to a time when he was 9 years old, when his family moved from a steel town near Pittsburgh out into the country, and he was assigned to go to a one-room school with one teacher, 50 children. And he discovered that he had to stand up and read a book in front of all of those people. And he didn't like that. In fact, the first time he did that in the school, he got a name. The kids started to call him Old Stumblebum. And he didn't want to have to read again. So it is one day. He came to the morning he was going to school. Now, there were no school buses. The year was 1952, and he had to walk to school a quarter of a mile. And as he walked to school, he went by a side road, and there was a story about a man who lived down that road. His name, he was called Charlie No Face. Now, Charlie No Face got his name because of a terrible tragedy. There had been a fire, and in his home, his mother and father and his sister and brother all died. Charlie was the only one who survived, but his body was covered with scars, and he could barely speak. And he became what we might call an urban legend. People told stories about going down that country road and meeting Charlie No Face. And the older brother of Edward said that he had walked down that road and met Charlie No Face just the day before, and he talked to him face to face. Now, when Edward heard that, and he started to school that morning, he didn't want to read in front of those teacher and those students, and he wanted to prove himself that he might not be a good reader, but he was brave. And so he decided he was going to go up to the place where Charlie No Face lived, knock on his door, and ask to talk with him. Well, that's what he decided to do. And so he left on his way to school, and he came to that side road, and he turned and he looked up the hill, and he could see there was a little cottage, a little one-room shack, and that's where Charlie No Face lived. He gathered his courage together. He took a deep breath, and he walked up to that old shack, and no answer. He rapped again, and then the door creaked and opened up, and there before him stood Charlie No Face. He looked at the boy, Edward, and said, You boy, what do you want?" Edward looked around and he said, I'd like to be your friend. You could see Charlie No Face step back, and a smile came to that face of his, and he said, You boy, you have courage. I think you can solve the problems that you have in your life. And I will be your friend and waiting to talk with you whenever you want. And so it was. Edward made a friend of Charlie No Face. And in all of those difficult times in that one-room school when he had to stand up and read in front of the kids, he would afterwards go down to that house, to that shack, and share his problems, and he would find the love from Charlie No Face for him.